In a solemn ceremony filled with pride and gratitude, America once again honored those who have worn its uniform, men and women who have risked everything for the ideals this nation holds dear. Among the decorated veterans recognized that day was Colonel Swinsson, a living reminder of courage under fire. As he stood before the audience wearing the Congressional Medal of Honor on his chest, the room fell silent, not out of formality, but out of deep respect for what that medal represents: sacrifice, duty, and an unbreakable devotion to country. When the applause subsided, another name echoed through the hall: Dale Stoville. Once a young Air Force helicopter pilot in the thick of the Vietnam War, Captain Stoville had been assigned one of the most perilous missions imaginable: the rescue of a downed American airman deep within hostile territory. The jungles of Vietnam were unforgiving, and enemy fire came from every direction. Yet, even after his helicopter was hit and he was forced to turn back, Stoville refused to give up. The next day, against every instinct of self-preservation, he climbed back into the cockpit of his HH-53C helicopter. He knew the odds, he knew the risks, but he also knew an American life was waiting. "I've got to do it," he reportedly told his crew before takeoff, and he did. Flying through a wall of gunfire, Stoville found and rescued the stranded pilot, a man who had been trapped for 23 agonizing days behind enemy lines. The mission became the deepest rescue operation ever conducted in the Vietnam War, a feat that would later be studied by military aviators for generations. For his bravery that day and for 11 other rescue missions under extreme fire, Stoville was awarded the Air Force Cross, the Distinguished Flying Cross, and 2 Silver Stars. By the time he retired, he held the title of Brigadier General and was recognized as the 4th most combat decorated graduate in the history of the U.S. Air Force Academy. As the president called his name, the crowd rose again, not out of ceremony, but reverence. "You are a legend," the president said, his voice carrying across the room. General Stoville smiled and nodded humbly, his posture still straight, his presence still commanding after 31 years of service. Moments like these serve as reminders that America's strength doesn't come only from its weapons or its wealth. It comes from its warriors, men and women who never quit, never surrender, and who live by a simple creed: fight, persevere, and win. But on this particular day, Veterans Day took on a new dimension. From the podium came an unexpected announcement, a presidential proclamation that sought to reshape how America remembers its past victories. "From now on," the president declared, "we will call it Victory Day for World War I." It was a symbolic move, but one charged with emotion. He recalled visiting France, where the armistice of 1918 is still celebrated as Victory Day, and noticing that the United States, the nation that had helped bring that war to an end, did not mark it the same way. "I saw France celebrating Victory Day," he said. "I saw the United Kingdom, Russia, all celebrating their victories, and I thought we should too. We're the ones who won the wars." That statement, though informal, reflected a broader effort to restore what he called the winning spirit of America, a call for renewed pride, self-confidence, and clarity of purpose. "From now on," he continued, "we will celebrate Victory Day for World War I, for World War II, and maybe someday for other wars too, because we've won a lot of good ones." The message resonated deeply with the veterans in the room, many of whom had served in conflicts where victory was measured not only by territory gained, but by lives saved and values upheld. For them, the word victory was not just military jargon, it was personal. The president then pivoted to another symbolic but provocative change, one that harkened back to an earlier era in American history. "Under my administration," he said, "we're restoring pride and the winning spirit of the United States military. That's why we have officially renamed the Department of Defense back to its original name, the Department of War." The announcement drew murmurs of surprise. It was an echo from the past, a name first used in 1789, later changed in 1949 in the wake of World War II. The new old title, he argued, better reflected America's original intent: not bureaucracy, but strength; not hesitation, but victory. "We won World War I, we won World War II, he said, "and then we decided to change the name. We became politically correct. We don't like being politically correct. From now on, when we fight a war, we fight for one reason: to win." His words reignited debate about military culture, strategy, and the balance between diplomacy and force. Yet for many in attendance, men like Colonel Swinsson and General Stoville, it was not about politics. It was about recognition that those who serve deserve clarity of purpose, the tools to succeed, and a nation that honours them not only in words but in action. That theme continued as the speech turned to domestic policy, specifically to the welfare of veterans themselves. The president reminded the crowd that the administration had made cutting the backlog of veterans affairs benefit claims a top priority. In 9 months, he said, we've cut the backlog in half. He turned toward a VA official seated in the front row. Doug's going to get it down to zero, he added, drawing applause. The remark was brief but symbolic, a signal to millions of veterans who had spent years waiting for disability, health or housing benefits that their cases were being taken seriously. During the previous administration, the backlog had ballooned, leaving countless veterans in limbo. Under the new plan, officials pledged to simplify paperwork, accelerate digital processing, and expand direct outreach to veterans in rural areas. Behind those numbers are real lives. Men and women who once flew combat missions, patrolled dangerous roads, or served in distant bases, now navigating civilian life with physical scars, unseen wounds, and financial uncertainty. For those veterans, the promise of a more responsive government offered hope, the same kind of hope that had once carried them through the chaos of war. The speech was not only about policy, though, it was also about emotion, a reaffirmation of identity. America's warriors never quit, the president said. They fight, 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 and they win. As the audience stood in applause, the veterans on stage stood taller still. Behind every medal was a story of loss, courage, endurance, and pride. Colonel Swinsson's gleaming Medal of Honor, General Stoville's Air Force Cross. These were not symbols of conflict, but of what the nation could be at its best, united, resolute, and brave. Veterans Day, or as it would now also be called, Victory Day, was no longer just about remembrance. It was about reaffirmation of America's promise to those who serve, and a reminder that freedom once earned must always be protected. As the event drew to a close, the band played softly. Veterans embraced one another, some smiling, others wiping away tears. A generation that had known the weight of war stood together in quiet dignity as the president shook hands and offered his final salute. In the end, the message was clear. Beyond the medals, beyond the speeches, beyond the politics, this day was about honor, the honor of those who had given their youth, their strength, and for too many, their lives, so that the ideals of liberty and justice could endure. And as the flags waved and the applause swelled, it was easy to feel the echo of those words. We fight to win, because for the veterans in that room and for those still serving around the world, the real victory has always been the same, standing firm for something greater than themselves and coming home to a nation that remembers.